Coming to you live via Facebook streaming, YouTube streaming, and via Skype. Each one of you is welcomed to this live streaming. Sutras of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, the question answer session. You cannot move within unless you create the need. The world is here as near to you as nirvana or moksha or liberation is near to you. For the world you have to move outward to the objects and beings through the sense objects. And for nirvana, moksha, salvation, you have to move within. For objects, you have to move outward, but the distance remains the same. From your eye, your center is just as near as you are to me. I can see you only if I move outward. I can see you if my energy moves through the eyes outward. I can see myself if I move within, if I move inwards. We are at the door of man is at the door of senses, but naturally the bodily needs are such that consciousness always moves outwards. To fulfill the bodily needs, the consciousness has to move outward. You need food, you need water to drink, you need a house to live in. All these are bodily needs and they can only be fulfilled in the world and they are found in the outer world. So naturally, consciousness moves through the senses, through the eyes, through the ears, through the nostril, through the mouth, through touch. It moves outward. And unless you create needs which can only be fulfilled when you move inward, there is no possibility for you to move inwards. For that you have to create the needs to move inwards. A child is born. For example, if the child was born self-sufficient, if he did not need any food, he will not look at his mother. He looks at the mother simply because he needs food. If there was no need for food, the mother will become irrelevant, meaningless, because for the child, the mother is not important, is not meaningful. Food is meaningful and mother provides the food. So mother is his first food. Because mother gives him food and satisfied the basic needs without which he cannot survive, he starts loving the mother. That love comes secondly. That love is secondly as a shadow, because the mother is fulfilling the basic need of the child. There are mothers who do not breastfeed the children, instead they give bottles. So those mothers cannot expect much love, because for the child food is the need, not the mother. Mother will come into his being, enter into his being, and in fact enters into his being through food. That is why food and love are deeply related to one another. If your love needs are fulfilled, you will eat less. If your love needs remain unfulfilled, unsatiated, you will try to fill that gap, fill that space with food. So those who love and who are loved do not gather much fat. There are other reasons also, but this is one of the most basic reason. They will not eat much. If love needs remain unfulfilled, then the space that is there, that will be fulfilled as a substitute with the food, and they gather fat. For the child, food is the basic necessity, but if the child should be born self-sufficient, who does not need any food, who does not need any outward help to be alive, he will not move in the outer world at all. He will simply remain as it is wherever he is. There would be no need. And unless a need is there, you need to go out to work because there is a need. You need to work. Work provides you shelter, home, and everything. If that need is not there, then you will not go to work. We move outwardly not because we are sinners. We move outward simply because of the needs which can only be fulfilled through the objects which can be gained only by moving outward in the world of objects and beings. This is for the movement outward. For outward movement, there is a need for survival, for that need for protection, need for security. You need a house, you need a job, you need a wife, you need children. Why do we have to move inward? Because the satisfaction that comes from the outer world because of the others, and when you move inward, there is no object, there is no being, only you. Why do we not move inward? Because we have not yet created any need to move inwards. For outward movement, you have created needs, a good job, a good vehicle, a good house. Once you have created any need, only then the movement begins. If the need is inward, you will move inward. And what are the inward needs for the inner movement? That need is connected with religion. You cannot be religious unless that need is there. How is that need created? By what process does one become aware of the deep need which helps him to move inwards? There are three things to remember in this light. Firstly, death. Remember, all life needs force you to move outward. If you want to move inwards, death becomes the basic concern. Otherwise, you cannot move inwards. That is why it happened that persons like Buddha who became deeply conscious of death began their journey inward without death, not fear of death, knowing that death will come one day. We must move within. Buddha became deeply conscious of death, started the inward journey. Only when you become aware of death, you will create the need to look back, to move within. Life looks outward. Unless you become aware of death, religion becomes meaningless to you. That is why animals do not have any religion. They are alive. They are as much alive as man is. And to some extent they are even more alive. But they cannot be conscious of death. They cannot conceive of death. They cannot see death approaching them, the footsteps. They cannot hear the silent footsteps of death approaching them. They see that others are dying, but it never occurs to an animal that death is that this death is an indication of his own death. For animal mind, death always occurs to others. To some extent this happens to certain men also. I am not saying become afraid of death. To become conscious of death and to be afraid of death are two different things. Buddha became conscious of death, not afraid of death. And when you are afraid of death, this does not mean you are conscious, you are not aware. Just be aware of the fact that death is coming nearer and nearer, and you have to be prepared for it. You have to be prepared for it. For example, when a storm is coming or a hurricane is coming, you make preparations. You start accumulating foods and listen to the weather updates. So you make precautions. Life has its own needs which are different than the needs that is created by death. That is why this society that is younger, they are not interested in religion. Because younger societies are not aware of the phenomena of death. It has not become the central concern for them. They are not bothered about it. As the society becomes older, and the society which is one of the oldest in the existence becomes so much aware of death. Because of that awareness, deep down, India became religious and the search for the inner became relevant. So first thing is this: become aware of death, think about it, look at it, contemplate it, but there is no need to be afraid. Do not escape the fact. It is there and you cannot escape it. It has come into existence the moment you were born. Death and birth are two sides of the same coin. We are looking at the side of birth but not death. With each birthday, you come one step closer to death. Death is born with you and you cannot escape it. You have hidden it within you, and For inward journey, become aware of it. The moment you become aware that you are going to die, that death is certain, your mind will start looking in a different dimension. You will forget, eat, drink and be merry. The moment you become aware that you are going to die, that death is certain, your total mind will start looking in a different dimension. Then food is the basic necessity for body, but not for the being. Because even if you get food, you cannot escape death. Even if you have a good vehicle, a good house, a good wife, you cannot escape death. Food cannot protect you, your car, your vehicle, your luxuries vehicle, your palatious house cannot save you, cannot protect you from death. Food can only postpone. Food can only help you to postpone. If you get a good shelter, a good house, it will not protect you in any way from death. It will only help you to die conveniently, comfortably, and death, whether it happens comfortably or uncomfortably, it remains the same. In life, you may be rich or poor, but death is the greatest equalizer. It does not make that a rich man will die differently than the poor man. Nothing. It is the greatest communism. Equality is in death. However you live, however comfortably you live, it makes no difference. Death happens equally. Equality is impossible. In death, the opposite, inequality, is impossible. Become aware of it, contemplate it, and it is not only that death is certain somewhere in the future, with the idea that it is very far away, you will again not be able to contemplate it. The mind has a very small range to look at things. The focus of the mind is very short distance. You cannot think beyond 30 years. After 30 years, there will be death. It is as if you are not going to die. Then 30 years is so long. The distance is so much. It is as if death is not going to happen. If you want to contemplate death, there is another fact that you know, that you need to know about it. First, death is certain. Second, it can happen any moment. Next moment it can happen. It is possible that it may happen the very next moment. Preparation for it you cannot postpone. You may not be able to hear the whole sentence, and it may happen. I may not be able to contemplate it. It cannot happen. I'll take two incidents. One from the life of Osho. When he was born, his parents went to the famous astrologer of the time in their area to get the birth chart to be made, the horoscope. Astrologer studied it, the time of the birth of the child, and said, if this child survives after 7 years, only then he will make the birth chart. He said there is no possibility that this child will live beyond 7 years. So it is useless to make his birth chart. It will be of no use. And it is my habit. The astrologer said that unless I am certain that the birth chart will be useful, I never make it. So he did not make. Waited for, fortunately or unfortunately, the parents had no choice but to wait. They waited. Osho survived 7 years. They went to the astrologer. And when they went, the astrologer was dead. He could never make the birth chart. He was dead. And he says that I was constantly wandering. We hear the footsteps of death. We can see the death of others, but we cannot see the silent footsteps of death approaching us. He was not aware of the fact that he may die. He was not aware. It seems that he was absolutely unconcerned, that he was no ordinary man. But no one is concerned with his own death. Knowingly, we are not concerned, knowingly or cunningly, we are not concerned with it, because the moment you start contemplating on death, it creates fear. Fear of losing all that you have accumulated. The astrologer might not have looked at his own birth chart, otherwise he would have become aware. Death is possible the next moment. Another incident I will take from my own life. My father wanted me to study the science subjects. When you study the mathematics side, you move towards the engineering field, and when you study biology side, then you move towards the medical science. These were the two prestigious jobs in India, and still to date they are. So he was working in an office as a clerk. So he did not want his son to become a clerk. So what we cannot do, we expect our children to do for us. So I had never had any interest in the mathematics or science subjects, gravitating towards those fields, medicine or engineering. There was no internet, no television, no phones to inquire and look into on Google that which is the good subject. Now if you want to know anything about any field, what is law of attraction, you go and Google it and you will find it. That time any such facility was not there. But naturally, and it's not that I had a big association with the people. Somehow or the other, from within, I felt that I must study for life and the future works, the sociology and social subjects. So it happened, I did not pass my BSc with science. So there was a person who was working in my father's office, and he was he know how to make the birth chart. So he looked at it. My father asked him to look at my birth chart and see what it is, my destiny. So he told my father that this time this boy will pass exam, and if he does not pass, he will pay his entire fees. When he told this, I told the person, do you know how much money you have to pay to my father at the end of the year? Because these science subjects are not cut for me and I will not pass again. You have to start working on this. So he said that I have to come back and make the birth chart, study a little more and deeper, and then make the birth chart. Death is possible, and after that he never came and he never made the birth chart. Death is possible the very next moment, but the mind cannot believe it. I say it and your mind will say no. How is it possible that death may happen next moment to me? I am hale and hearty, I am healthy, my heart rate, my health, everything is good. How can I die next moment? It is still far away, and this is the trick. If you postpone for reasons of your own, you cannot contemplate. It must be so near that you can focus on it. And when I say that the next moment it is possible, I mean it. It can happen. And whenever it happens, it always happens the next moment. Just before it, you will not be able to contemplate that it is going to happen. That's why we say sometimes that the person didn't need to die, he just all of a sudden died. Secondly, this is the first, that we are afraid of death. We do not think that it is going to happen to us. The second is you go on living, you go on creating artificial means and purposes for this purpose. You never think your life as a whole, whether it has any meaning or not. You go on creating new meanings in life. You push yourself on with other meanings. That is why a poor man lives a more meaningful life than a rich man, because poor man has many things to get, and that gives meaning to his life. If you are rich, you mean you have everything that is possible in this world. Then your life will become meaningless. Now you cannot create any meaning for this moment, for this day, to help you to live. Why do a rich man has to live for? He has a big house, he has servants working in the house, he has nothing to do, he have a big luxurious vehicle, and he have a driver to drive him around. That is why the richer the society is, the more affluent a culture is, the more meaninglessness is felt in life. Poor societies never feel meaninglessness. A poor man is concerned, he has some basic needs, to have a better house. For years he goes on working for it. His life has a meaning, something he has to achieve, and when he gets the house, he'll be happy for some days at least, and then a bigger house becomes the need. So he goes on moving, doing this and that, and never thinking his life as a whole. Whether it has any meaning or not, he never takes life as a whole. Just imagine, you have everything in the house, the car that you long for, and all your dreams are fulfilled. So what is there more? Just imagine that whatsoever you need is there. You have it. Now what? Suddenly the meaning disappears. You are standing on an abyss. Nothing can be done more. You become meaningless. You are already meaningless. There is no awareness. Even if you get the whole world, then what? It happened with Alexander. Alexander came to India and he met a saint. His name was Diogenes. Diogenes was a man of the most penetrating minds ever born. He lived naked just like Mahavir. He was the Mahavir of Greek civilization and culture. He left everything, renounced everything, not because through renouncing things he was going to get anything. There is not real renouncing if you expect that by leaving this I will get something else. If you renounce something for something else, this is known as bargain. If you think that you are going to have some reservations in heaven, as it has been propagated by certain religions and religious beliefs, this is not renunciation. If you renounce the bodily pleasures to have spiritual pleasures, it is not renunciation. Diogenes has renounced everything not because out of it he is going to get something else in heaven. He renounced just to see if when he has nothing, whether there will be any meaning or not. He thought that if one possesses nothing, if even then one has a meaning, a purpose, a destiny, then death cannot annihilate anything, because death can annihilate only possessions, and the body is also a possession. He left everything. He had only one thing, a wooden bowl to drink water. He thought, this is not much of a possession to have. Then one day he saw a child drinking water with his own hands, making a cup out of his hand. He immediately threw away the bowl, the wooden bowl, and said, if a child can drink water with his hands, am I more weak than a child? When Alexander was coming to India to conquer, to make a world empire, somebody informed him just on the way there would be, there lived a sage who was just the opposite of him. He was told, you are going to make a world empire. And he has even thrown away his wooden bowl, because he says that as he is happy without it, so why carry any burden? And you say that unless the whole world becomes your empire, you cannot be happy. Just the two opposite things. So he is just the opposite pole, and it is good to meet him. Alexander was very much fascinated. It happened that the opposite always fascinates you. The opposite always fascinates. It has a deep sexual attraction. Just a man is attracted to a woman and a woman is attracted to a man. there is the same attraction for the opposite. Alexander could not pass by Diogenes, but it was not good for him to go to Diogenes, and it was impossible that Diogenes will come to him. There was no solution. Diogenes was informed. Many messengers came to him that great Alexander is passing this way. It would be good if you meet him. He said, Great Alexander, who said this to you? I think he himself has. So tell your Alexander that he has nothing to give me, and there is no need for him to meet me. And I am a small man. He used to say, really, I am a dog, not a man at all, just a dog, so there is no need. It is below his dignity to come and meet the dog. Then Alexander came to meet Diogenes. Diogenes reported to have said, I hear you are going to win the whole world. So I thought, I closed my eyes and thought, okay, if I have won the whole world, even what? And then what? This has been my problem constantly. If I have won the whole world, then what next? It is reported Alexander, after hearing this, became very sad. Then what? I have gained this, then what? So he said to Diogenes, do not talk about such things, because these things make me sad. Diogenes said, but you will become very sad when you win the whole world. What can I do? I am just imagining, and I have come to conclude it is useless. You are making a suicidal effort. You yourself are trying to win the whole world. So then what? If you succeed, then what? Alexander returned from Diogenes very disturbed, upset and sad. He said to his companion, this man Diogenes is dangerous. He has shattered my dreams. He could never forgive Diogenes, could not forget and could never forgive Diogenes. The day he died, he remembered him again, and he said, it may be that fellow was right. Then what? So remember, next thing, to remember always that whatsoever you are doing, whatsoever you are achieving, go on asking, if I succeed in this, then what? Is there meaning in it at all? Or just an artificial meaning given by you only to divide, to create an illusion around you, so that you can feel that you are doing something worthwhile, and all the time you are really wasting your energy, not doing anything worthwhile. There is only one thing worthwhile: if you become happy without anything, without any dependence, if you can be blissful alone, totally alone, nothing. If nothing is needed for your bliss, only then you can be blissful. Otherwise, you will always be in misery and miserable. We'll continue on this in tomorrow's session. Until then, take care and do have a pleasant day.